Like life has become a silent performance, everyone clapping, smiling, surviving, but nothing feels real. The colors are bright, but your soul is gray. The laughter echoes, but it doesn't reach your bones. Underneath the noise of busy lives and social praise, there's a quiet ache, the kind that makes you ask, what's the point of all this? This is not depression. It's not just sadness. It's the deep recognition that something essential has been lost. Not outside of you, but within. That haunting sense that life moves, but you don't. That perhaps you're not living, just functioning. But what if this feeling isn't a flaw? What if it's not something to escape, but something to listen to? In a world obsessed with answers, this might be your one real question. How do you keep going when nothing makes sense anymore? This journey is not about finding comforting illusions or chasing ready-made hope. It's about learning how to live, truly live, even when the world refuses to give you meaning. And in doing so, perhaps you'll discover that the absence of meaning might just be your greatest freedom. You scroll, you tap, you laugh at things you forget in seconds. Then you scroll again. The rhythm is seamless, mechanical, almost elegant in its repetition. It's a choreography of distraction. On the surface, nothing seems broken. You go to work, you meet deadlines, you say, "I'm good," when asked. And yet, underneath the surface, something aches. It doesn't scream. It hums like a distant engine of sorrow that never shuts off. There's no tragedy, no event you can point to and say, "This is why I feel empty." And that's what makes it so unsettling, because it's not about what happens, it's about what doesn't. You look around and everything seems orchestrated to keep you from stopping, from asking, from feeling. We are surrounded by a performance of purpose, goals, metrics, smiles, ambitions. It all looks so convincing that questioning it feels like heresy. But some part of you knows this is a well-decorated cage. There's applause, yes, but no air. And the most terrifying realization of all? You're not alone. This numbness is not yours exclusively. It's a shared secret, the silent agreement we all sign when we agree to keep moving, even when we no longer remember why. This is the absurdity of modern life. Not just pain, but disconnection from pain. Not just busyness, but the hollowing that comes from being busy for nothing. We have built a world that praises us for becoming functional ghosts, efficient, polite, and profoundly lost. Albert Camus didn't need to witness TikTok or corporate wellness seminars to see this. He already knew. When he spoke of the absurd, he wasn't talking about melodrama. He was naming this very quiet disintegration, this moment when everything seems to be working, yet nothing feels alive. To see it is a curse. But it's also the first honest step. Because when you begin to sense the falseness, when the applause no longer distracts you, when the smile in the mirror starts to crack, that's when something real stirs. It's not clarity. It's not even hope. It's a discomfort. A tremble in your soul that whispers, "This can't be it." We were born with questions etched into our bones. Not the kind you raise your hand for, but the kind that rise uninvited at 3 a.m. What am I doing here? What does it mean to be alive? What, if anything, justifies the pain I carry? But the world, the universe, it doesn't answer. It never has, and never will. There is a specific kind of suffering that arises not from events, but from silence. Not from chaos, but from the absence of reply. We are creatures who crave coherence, storylines, divine plans. But reality offers none of that. It just is. Cold, infinite, unconcerned. And so we build temples out of routines. We create myths with goals and timelines. We tell ourselves that life must lead somewhere, that there's a thread tying all this together. Because to accept that there might be no grand plot, only the raw improvisation of existence, feels unbearable. Camus called this collision the absurd. Not because life mocks us, but because it refuses to participate in our search for meaning. The absurd is not a thing, but a relationship between our hunger for understanding and the universe's indifference. Some try to solve this by suppressing the hunger. They numb it with consumption, with religion, with noise. Others turn their despair inward and declare everything hopeless. But neither is a confrontation. Both are forms of retreat. The honest path, and the most painful, is to feel it fully, to live in the presence of the unanswered question, to walk through a world that offers no certainty and yet still choose to walk. Not because it will all make sense one day, but because walking itself is the act of rebellion. What is often misread as nihilism is, in fact, a fierce honesty. A refusal to be lied to, even if the lie is beautiful. Camus doesn't say that meaning doesn't matter. He says that it matters so much we should stop pretending it comes from elsewhere. That we should stop outsourcing our spiritual responsibility. To be alive in an absurd universe is to be cast in a play with no script, no audience, no final act. And your first instinct might be to walk off the stage. But perhaps there's something even braver. To stay, to speak lines that no one wrote, to dance even if no one is watching, to write meaning into a world that won't hand it to you. The moment we recognize the absurd, we are at risk, not because truth is dangerous, but because comfort is seductive. In the face of the void, most of us reach for something, anything, to stop the bleeding. We tell ourselves stories, not to understand, but to avoid. Stories of salvation, divine design, eventual justice. We lean into systems that promise relief, not clarity, and we begin to trade truth for anesthesia. It's important to name these myths, not to mock them, but to understand them. Religion is one, not spirituality, but the kind of rigid dogma that offers all the answers before you've asked the questions. Then there's ideology. Political, moral, philosophical frameworks so airtight that they suffocate doubt. Even optimism can become a trap when it demands we pretend things are fine when they clearly are not. Camus called this the philosophical suicide, a beautiful phrase for a brutal reality, the moment we stop thinking because the truth hurts too much. And yet, there's a price. Every illusion comes at the cost of lucidity. Every system that shields you from the void also shields you from authenticity. You start saying words you don't mean, defending values you've never tested, living lives that look whole but feel hollow. To face the absurd is to feel naked, but it is yourself that stands there. No mask, no myth. And that is the beginning of something terrifying and sacred. True freedom begins the moment you stop lying to yourself, not just about God or society or politics, but about your own choices, the job you hate but keep, the relationship that died but lingers, the dream that was never yours, but you chase it anyway. Letting go of false escapes doesn't mean falling into despair. It means creating a clearing, an empty space where something real might begin to grow. It means burning down the stage so that you can finally step into your own life, unscripted. The myths won't save you, but the refusal to accept them, that just might. To resist doesn't always look like a revolution. Sometimes it's waking up and choosing not to collapse. Sometimes it's the smallest refusal, not to numb, not to conform, not to betray yourself one more time. We tend to imagine rebellion as loud, raised fists, declarations, dramatic exits. But the truest revolt, the one Camus spoke of, is often silent. It lives inside your bones. It is the moment you recognize the absurd and, instead of turning away, you turn inward and say, "Even so, I will live." This resistance is not about fixing the world or making sense of it. It's about choosing to remain conscious in a world that begs you to go to sleep, to refuse the default scripts, to walk through routines with your eyes wide open. That is a sacred act. Most people don't die from catastrophe. They die from compromise, from years of tiny, quiet betrayals. The moments when they silenced their own voices to keep the peace. The times they traded their curiosity for convenience, their pain for performance. No one noticed their death because their body kept moving. Their smile remained, but their spark, that holy unrest, it faded. To resist is to protect that unrest, not to heal it, not to solve it, but to honor it as the part of you that refuses to disappear. But make no mistake, this choice will cost you. You will lose comfort. You will become incomprehensible to some. You will see others chasing things you cannot want anymore. You will be tempted to envy their ease, their belonging, their apparent certainty. And yet, there's something more valuable than belonging. Being awake. This rebellion is not against the world. It's not even against absurdity. It's a rebellion for your own aliveness. It's saying, I will carry this stone, not because it's noble or poetic, but because it is mine. Because in carrying it with awareness, I reclaim my will. There is no final battle, no grand resolution, only this moment, this breath, this step, taken freely, without illusion. That is revolt. And in that quiet defiance, life, strange, difficult, unpromised, begins to shimmer with a strange kind of dignity. There is no map, no cosmic checklist, no secret code that unlocks why you're here. The universe, as Camus told us, will not explain itself. And perhaps, at last, that's a gift. Because once you stop looking for meaning out there, you are free to build meaning in here. We tend to think meaning is something we discover, like treasure buried beneath decades of suffering. But what if it's something we sculpt, something we forge, painfully, beautifully, from the raw material of our own attention? You don't need a divine plan to make your life sacred. You need presence. You need the courage to choose what matters to you, again and again, even when no one is watching. Think of the small moments. The way you listen to someone when you're exhausted. The way you hold your grief without rushing it away. The way you write, dance, build, speak, even when no one claps. Especially then. That's where meaning lives. It doesn't come from outcomes. It comes from engagement. It comes from how fully you show up in the act. That's the only thing the absurd cannot take from you. Your response. Your refusal to vanish. This isn't romantic. It's not glamorous. In fact, it can be incredibly boring, because meaning isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just consistency. The choice to do something well even though it might not matter to anyone else. The decision to love someone the way you wish the world loved you. The awareness that your life is a single thread in a vast, indifferent tapestry. And still, you choose to weave it with care. This is not a call to be productive. Productivity is the enemy of presence. This is a call to live with intention, to choose your gestures, your values, your rituals, and to treat each as a declaration. I may not know why I exist, but I can choose how I exist. Your freedom is not in escaping the void. It's in planting your flag there, in carving a place that is yours, not because it was promised to you, but because you dared to claim it. That's how meaning is made, not found, not delivered, built, daily, awkwardly, authentically. We are handed scripts the moment we are born. Gender, success, religion, career, family, happiness. They come printed in fine ink, wrapped in the language of advice and tradition. Most people never question them. Most don't even realize they're reading from something someone else wrote. To live without a script is terrifying. At first, you begin to notice the lines you've memorized. I'm just tired. I'm fine, thanks. I should be grateful. They fall out of your mouth before you've even asked yourself if they're true. But one day, perhaps today, you pause. You hear yourself speaking and something inside says, I don't believe this anymore. And that is the beginning of freedom. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's subtle, like a shift in the wind. You start saying no to things you once said yes to. You stop laughing at jokes that make you wince. You let silence stretch longer than politeness permits. You begin, in other words, to live from your own center. There is a strange kind of loneliness that comes with this, because the world is designed for the scripted, the ones who follow the flow, the ones who suppress the scream for the sake of convenience. But what you lose in comfort, you gain in authenticity. Living without a script doesn't mean you never follow structure. It means you know why you're following it, that you have chosen it, not inherited it, that you can walk away at any time and still be whole. This is how identity is forged, not in slogans or rebellion, but in the quiet spaces where you decide, not once but repeatedly, to be real. There is no applause for this, no award, but you will feel it. In your chest, in your breath, in the way your body stops tensing around certain people, in the way you wake up. Not happy, but honest. You are not what the world says you are. You are not your story, your title, your failures, your feed. You are the one who gets to decide what any of it means. To live unscripted is not to be reckless. It is to be sovereign, to live with the unshakable truth that no one else, not even the gods, gets to write your lines. Not all collapse looks like disaster. Sometimes it's subtle, an invisible crumbling from the inside. You keep smiling, showing up, playing your role. But one morning you realize you no longer recognize your own reflection. You haven't broken, you've faded. But fading isn't final. In fact, it's often the first sign of something real trying to surface. We're taught to avoid collapse, to fix it, hide it, escape it. But what if the breaking down is not a failure, but an invitation? When your life no longer fits, when your beliefs begin to dissolve, what you're experiencing isn't destruction, it's clearing. This is where the shift begins. In the ruins of false identities and borrowed meaning, you finally have space to ask, what do I want to build now? Camus knew this. He didn't romanticize collapse, but he saw its power. Because once illusions fall, you're left with something raw, freedom. Not the kind that comes from escaping the world, but the kind that lets you finally engage with it, honestly. And that's where creation begins. Not from grand inspiration, but from small, deliberate choices. The way you speak, what you protect, who you become when no one's watching. These are not minor acts. They are how you reclaim authorship of your life. Collapse strips you of what's false. Creation invites you to choose what's true. There will still be silence, still absurdity, still days when the stone rolls down again. But now, you're not pushing it because you were told to. You're doing it because you chose it. Because even in the absence of meaning, you found the courage to create your own. And in that act, not in outcomes, not in applause, something sacred begins. You stop surviving. You begin living. So you've looked into the void, and it didn't look back. You've asked the universe for a reason, and it stayed silent. And for a moment, that silence crushed you. But then, something shifted. You realized, maybe that silence isn't a rejection. Maybe it's an invitation to stop waiting and to begin creating. To drop the illusion that life owes you something. To stop begging for answers and start asking better questions. What do I want to create in this life, despite its chaos? What do I want to honor? Not because it matters to the universe, but because it matters to me. You are not a victim of the absurd. You are the artist working with it. And now you face the simplest, hardest truth. Life doesn't have to make sense to be worth living. Meaning is not something you find. It's something you choose every day in how you love, act, fail, persist. And that choice, quiet, private, defiant, is the most radical thing you can do. You will still fall. The stone will still roll down the hill. But if you can push it not with hope, But with awareness, you're no longer just surviving. You're living on your own terms, not because it's easy, but because it's real.